Welcome to Who Are You Uninterrupted with Felecia Hatcher, the podcast that dives deep into discovering your true, uninterrupted self. Let's get started.
You heard about do, decide, delegate, and delete, right? And so it's it's actually the framework for the Eisenhower Matrix, but I feel like you can overlay that on top of Zone of Genius in this really dope way to kind of simplify what to do, right? And so if you're not familiar with the Eisenhower framework, I'm gonna break it down for y'all. So hey, happy Wednesday. I am freezing cold in Tennessee, but good stuff and good stuff happening in Tennessee. But I wanted to chat with y'all, right? Because I first found out about the Eisenhower Matrix in Brian Tracy's book, Eat the Frog. And Eisenhower was our 34th president, right? And he had this matrix called what people coin the Eisenhower Matrix for getting a decision-making process to help a productivity process to help you make better decisions around things that were urgent or important or not in your life, right? And so there's 4 points to this. And I had a little graphic. I'll probably just post it on my stories because I think you can't upload background photos on stories anymore. I don't know. Hey, everybody. If you can, you guys let me know so I can show you the graphic. But there's 4, right? There's 4 components to it. So do, decide, delegate, and then delete. And then, because I talk about Zone of Genius with Gay Hendricks to exhaustion. And so Zone of Genius, Zone of Excellence, Zone of Competence, and then Zone of Incompetence, right? And so, but I was like, man, these things actually kind of lay on top of each other, really easy for people to better understand, how to get to your Zone of Genius, how to get rid of all the stuff that's not it, but then also how to make better decisions around the things that you should do and you should not be doing. You have absolutely no reason you should be doing those, period, right? And so the Eisenhower framework, right? If we start with do, right? It's the things that are urgent and the things that are super, super important that really only you can do in the way that you do. So Zone of Genius, and then the do part of the Eisenhower Matrix. And then from there, it's decide, right? Which I think just lays over Zone of Excellence so brilliantly as well. And so in that instance, you're making the decision, but you're not the one that's doing it. And I like that kind of reframe of thinking about your Zone of Excellence, because I think you still have to do things, not have to, but you still end up jumping in and out of it sometimes until you fully get your systems, people, things, all this stuff built out. So you're only working in your Zone of Genius. But I think in your genius, you then get to decide who does what that complements or that is in your Zone of Excellence, right? So these things, according to the Eisenhower Matrix, are important, but they're not urgent, meaning that they don't require you to do them, but you probably have to make a decision on how it's getting done, what system is getting ready to be used, or who is going to be doing those things moving forward. So there's still a decision-making process in that for you, right? Thank you. I got this ring. Someone said the ring is gorgeous. I got this ring in Toronto when we went there for my daughter's birthday. And so, and I wish they had more stones, because I would have gotten every color, because I love it. All right. And then your Zone of Competence, right, which is on the Zone of Genius framework, goes really hand in hand with the delegation part of the Eisenhower Matrix. And so it's delegation. You are you're not doing any of this stuff in your Zone of Competence. You know how to do it, but you definitely should not be doing it. Don't say yes to it anymore. Everything that falls in this thing needs to be delegated moving forward. And so the other part that they say in that framework, in that matrix, is these things are urgent, but they're not important, right? Definitely not to level of importance that requires you. And then your Zone of Incompetence goes alongside, in the Zone of Genius framework, goes alongside the deletion, delete component of the Eisenhower framework. I'm gonna turn this around so y'all can see it, right? And so, hold on, right? And so this is the last part. So delete means you definitely shouldn't be doing it. It should be deleted out of not only your to-do list, but definitely your mind. And because zone of incompetence means like you should not be doing those things. You suck at doing these things. You are probably one of the worst in the world at doing these things, but you say yes to it because you are people pleasing, or you think that you should be saying yes to stuff when you really should be saying no, right? My computer screen is starting. All right. And so delete. It's not urgent, and it's definitely not important, right? And so I had to put these two things together because I had read that book years ago, hadn't really thought about it. Then I saw like the Eisenhower Matrix floating back around again. And I was just like, man, that really simplifies thinking through zone of genius, right? Your zone of genius, your zone of excellence, your zone of competence, and then your zone of incompetence. I was doing a talk earlier, so like I'm stumbling over my words at this point. And then the do, decide, the delegate, and then the delete. You do the things that are urgent and important because those are the things that 9 times out of 10 are in your zone of genius, right? You are the one to do it because you can only do it in the way that you do it. It also helps you like prioritize things a little bit cleaner, I think a little bit better, and just very synthesized in a way that anybody can understand this. And then decide, right? You're making the decisions in the things that are a zone of excellence because those things are still of high priority, right? They're important, but they may not necessarily like be urgent. And then you're delegating, right? And so these things are urgent, right? But they're not important. And then deletion, right? And so these things are not urgent. They are not important. And I think that the thing is people will make things urgent and important to you that are not the case, right? You hear people talk all the time like your emergency is not my emergency in the moment, but sometimes people try to make their emergency your emergency. Oh, I was like, where is that coming from? And so I don't know. I just wanted to share that with y'all because I was just like, man, this even has my brain percolating around like all of this stuff in a really interesting way. And then I think the other part, because technology and AI is then also thinking through, I think on the decide and the delegation part of the Eisenhower Matrix, what parts do humans need to do in your life? And then what parts can AI do for you? Because there's literally like an AI technology solution platform for literally every single thing. But I'm interested to see what what y'all are thinking. August Kit said, this is integrated into the curriculum for a course on success for first year students at Bergen Community College. That's really cool. I think a lot of people use this, and I've seen it in a lot of places, and I've just never seen people put those two things together, right? In the way that they have. And so, but I think the Eisenhower Matrix is really powerful, mostly because of its simplicity and how it just can help you think through, all right, the things, what are the, like, if you sit down, and I try to sit down every Sunday, maybe 80% of the time, and get ready for the week. I meet with my assistant every Friday afternoon, and we go through not just the week ahead, we really go through the month ahead, and we literally do that every single week. And then on Sunday nights, I try to also then do that again personally, and then also just from a business standpoint, organization standpoint, right? I don't use this matrix as much, but like I'm gonna start using it more, but it's just a process of like going through brain dumping, going through delegating that needs to be delegated. What are the things that are like the top priority for me that I'm the only one that can do or address or be at those things, and that's really helpful. And then of course also like what thing on here does not have any business being on here at all, right? And then of course like the decision part I think is really interesting because I hadn't put that into the context that it's laid out in like the Eisenhower Matrix, but I think it's just really helpful to also be thinking about like what are the things that you are the only one that can make the decision on that thing. Things cannot move forward until you make that decision, but making that really clear distinction that you need to make a decision, but you are not the person that needs to own that thing. You're not the person that needs to execute on that thing. And I think that part is really powerful and empowering for those people of just saying like, all right, I need to maybe move the chess pieces around, but I am not like the chess piece, right? And I think it's very freeing and really kind of empowers you to free up your time so that you can spend more time in the things that are within your genius, right? And the things that on the Eisenhower Matrix side fall into like the do. Like you are the only one that can do the thing in the way that you do it. Stephen Covey made it a big part of his model. He did. Okay, so yes. And so I think that's where, no, I know I saw it in Brian Tracy's book years ago, but then I feel like I've seen it like a breath of fresh air had been breathed whatever into it in so many different ways. And so Stephen Covey, I love his stuff, and I think that's also where I saw something floating around recently with it as well. Decide but not do. Yes. And then seven. Ooh. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to share. I'm going to show y'all the graphic again, just in case anyone wants to screenshot it, and then I'm going to post it into my stories. But just thinking between how you lay these two frameworks on top of each other to, one, help you stay in your genius more. I tell everyone, like in my book, to make sure you, in the beginning, dedicate at least 10 minutes to an hour to doing things that are in your genius, right? I think an hour a day of just like zero in and focus on the things and only the things that are in your genius is really helpful. And then you get to a point where you can fully integrate it. And those are the only things that you do that are in your zone of genius that unlock your zones of opportunity. But in the meantime, getting in a practice of starting to decide, be the decision maker, but not the executor. And if that is your superpower, right? Let me make that little caveat there. Like your superpower may be the executor, but I think there's even in it being you being a high level executor and that being your genius, there are still things that you don't need to execute anymore. And so you just need to be able to make the decision on it because it's important and it's not necessarily urgent where it pulls you out of your genius and you have to start being the person that owns that thing. Your zone of competence is all the things that you should absolutely be delegating because they may be urgent, but they are not necessarily important. And then your zone of incompetence, meaning get rid of all of that stuff because it doesn't serve you. And oftentimes the project or the thing is oftentimes worse off because you were doing it. And if y'all know what I mean, right? And so it was funny because I was talking about that yesterday, and Norman, who's assisting me this week, it was just like, I think you made a mistake. Like you said something about like, if the person does it, the thing is worse off. You meant to say like, it's better. I'm like, no, I actually meant to say you can easily cause more harm than good when you do things that are not in your genius, not in your zone of excellence, not in your zone of competence, that things are that in your zone of incompetence. Like you can cause harm to people. You can cause harm to projects. You can set projects back significantly just by holding on to the thing, and you don't have the skill set to do it. You don't have the energy to do it. You don't have the attention and care to do it. You can literally do more harm than good when it's nowhere near something that you should be doing or how you should be spending your time. Wasting people's time by saying yes to something and you procrastinate on it for days and weeks on end is causing more harm than good. Why? Because time is a commodity that none of us can get back. And so many people say time is money. No, time is not money. Like time is infinitely more valuable than money because you cannot get time back. Money can always be reprinted or printed and reprinted. Money can always it can be lost clearly, but it can always be gained back. Once someone wastes your time, or moreover, when you waste your time, you don't ever get those seconds, minutes, hours, days, years back. You do not get them back. And so you have to make sure that you are striving towards living a life that is abundantly in your genius and strategically in your genius as much as possible, so that your time is infinitely more valuable to you, and then also infinitely more valuable to others, right? Like when you are working in your genius, and it's the thing that ever since like that term came into my life a few years ago, it has been the thing that has stuck so much. That's why I teach it, right? And that's why I trained under the author in order to learn like deeper levels of it, because it has been one of the most transformational things for me. But it gave me such a level of clarity around, well, what is my highest value and highest contribution? And what are the things that are not? And what are the things that I say yes to because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings? Or I think I can do it, or yes, I know how to do it, but I'm not the best person to do it. And I'm okay with saying, I am not the best person to do this thing. Or I am the worst person to do this thing. You can ask me because I have the ability to be able to produce. Yes. And I think that's what messes people up. Like you have the ability to produce. You have the ability as a human being, as a highly functioning and a highly accomplished, or a person on their way to be highly accomplished, like human being that is multifaceted, and you can do a lot of things. I can talk and blink and do all these things all at the same time. Can I do certain things at a level of incompetence and a level of genius? Absolutely, right? But I win, my family wins, my organization wins, the things that are near and dear to my heart when I am in my genius as much as possible. And I think the dangerous thing is when we start thinking about like, the opportunity cost of things, right? Or not thinking about the opportunity cost of things, because you're just like, yeah, I can do it and it'll save us a few dollars. But no, it costs you more. It costs you way more when you really run the numbers. Numbers do not lie. They do not lie. And so you can delegate out, like, I always use this example of making copies. I know how to run a copy machine, clearly. I had 5 internships when I was in college. I've worked in corporate America for a long time, run businesses for a really long time. I know how to work a copy machine in my sleep, quite effortlessly, right? But if I needed to print off like 100 page decks or something like that, and I'm sitting there and waiting, it's not the savings of like an intern's hourly fee or like an assistant's hourly fee. I'm not saving that. We think that that's the savings. You're not saving that. Whatever your highest financial contribution to your family or your company or your business, whatever that dollar amount is, that is what it's costing you to make those copies. Y'all pick it, right? And so if your highest contribution, when you go out and you close a deal, or you do the pitch meeting, or you close the you sell the thing, or whatever it is that you do, say when you do that, it's 10 grand, 20 grand that comes into the org. It takes you about an hour of like physically doing the thing. So you sitting at the copy machine, you think that it's saving, $10, $15, $20 an hour. No, it's actually costing the company $10,020 or $20,020. Like that is what you have to be thinking about. And so I think before you get there, you got to go through both of the frameworks in the matrix, because it helps you understand your value in the marketplace. It helps you understand your value in your family. It helps you understand your value in your career. It helps you understand your value in the marketplace and in your life, right? And in the industry that you're in. So then you get to communicate that value. But then more than anything, you super serve in that value, because you get to stay in your genius and continue to ideate and continue to create and continue to imagine, continue to build and put out into the world things that are in your genius, that when you do the thing in only the way that you do the thing, like that highest level of value means a higher and the highest level of return coming back to you and your thing and your family and your career and your business as a result of that. And it sounds like really big and weighty, y'all, but it's not. The process of getting there is more so not that the thing doesn't currently exist. It's us taking the ownership of saying, that is the position that I am in. That is the mindset that I currently have. That is a level of clarity that I now understand about my value in the marketplace or my value across these things. And I need to say no to everything else that's not it. I need to say no to everything else that's not it. And like this do, decide, delegate, and delete Eisenhower Matrix is really helpful, because what it shows you, and same thing with zone of excellence, zone of competence, zone of incompetence, but it's just so like succinct and clear. Do, decide, delegate, and then delete. Why it's so helpful for you is now it helps you understand that there are levels to no's. There are levels to you saying no, right? Yeah, I say yes to the things that are in my genius. Yes to the things that I do, because I'm the only person that can do it in the way I do it. And when I do it, it gets a high return. But then the things that I have to say no to, there are levels in which I say no to. I need to make decisions. I don't need to do, I make the decision. The next no is I don't need to do it at all. I don't even need to be the person making the decision. The only decision that needs to be made is who it's going to be delegated to. And that's probably not the decision that you need to make, because you need to have like someone whose zone of like your zone of excellence is their zone of genius. They need to then be making the delegation decisions, right? And so that's the decision part is a no. And then the delegation part is another no that you make. And then like the final no is get this crap completely away from me. Get these things away from me. Get this responsibility away from me. I do not need to be anywhere remotely close to this thing, because it needs to be deleted. You should not be doing it. You can't do it. And the quicker you fully understand your value, you also then understand your capacity. And when you start empowering your no's, that makes your yeses so much more sweeter. And it also makes your yeses a lot more expensive. Because now you have choice. Now you have freedom. Now you have time. Now you have space on your calendar to take care of yourself, to stay in your genius long enough so that you actually start to reap the rewards of it. And that doesn't happen without a process of elimination. It cannot happen without a process of elimination, especially if you are a grown adult, because we pick up all these bad habits. We pick up all these responsibilities that are not in our genius. They're not even in our excellence. They're not even in our competence. You don't know how to do it. Stop. Stop. Right? And so if I want to create an app but are not code savvy, do you suggest a resource or a company? I don't have one to suggest immediately. There's an individual that I can recommend, but I kind of need to know a little bit more about what you're doing. But I like the fact that you were asking for a resource or a company, because some of us, it's called upon to learn how to code. And then for others, you need to outsource that thing. Right? And so making that decision is really helpful. There's a person, a really good-hearted person that I can recommend you have a conversation with, and then you can see if it makes sense for you and your budget and things like that. So if you shoot me a DM, I will connect you to his name is Mike. All right. This is good. Hey, Plush Life Media. How are you? This is where I am. OMG. And the thing is, it's really an iterative process, right? Like, you get to a level of clarity around this so that like you're not chaotic anymore, in the sense that you can start making better decisions, more decisive decisions, and your body feels less chaotic because you feel really aligned, because you were clear on what your calling is. You're clear on what your highest, again, value is in the marketplace, in your family, your career, your business. Like when you have that level of clarity, you get to breathe again. Like really clear, clean breaths, because you're not weighed down by things that make you literally feel sick or feel misaligned. Like you literally get to breathe again. And the air is so different. It's not like rare air. I'm not talking about that, right? But the air becomes so different because you're breathing in and out clarity. Like I'm very clear. And I'm not pushing myself into a box of things that I don't know, I don't understand. Like I'm clear on my understanding. And I'm clear on what else I need to learn about this. And I love it because it's really a practice, right? That's why it's an iterative process. It's going to continue to evolve because you're a human and you continue to evolve. And you morph and you reshape. And the more that you learn and the level of clarity that you get, then you realize that there's levels to that clarity. And you become a different kind of person as a result of that. And then you require different people and conversations and things around you as you continue to ascend. Like it's a really interesting journey to be on. And I think just like appreciating and the love of that journey, but then also being open enough to go on the journey to begin with is really interesting, right? I think I did a video last year on this that just talked about, there's this moment that once you realize what your genius is, once you realize what, even on the Eisenhower Matrix of knowing the things, the top level things that you're supposed to do that are urgent and important to you, to your bank account, to your livelihood, to your freedom, to your freedom of, like whatever it is. Like once you get that level of clarity, then you got to be ready to do something with it. And I think even from my personal experience, right? I think that sometimes that scares people more than never knowing what it is. And I feel like this is another conversation for another time, but some of y'all will fully understand what that means, right? Like once I realize like, damn, like this is my genius. Like I now got to start acting accordingly. I now got to start investing accordingly. I now got to start waking up accordingly. You got to now be fully committed to playing that thing full out. And I think there's just a really interesting moment that's there. I feel like there's a gap that's there that even once you realize your thing is your thing, then you got to ask yourself, am I willing to become the person that like owns that? Like I got to own that. And as a result of like understanding that identity shift or that mindset shift, but like understanding that identity shift, like, am I really fully committed to my gift? And some people can't answer that right now. And I felt like many times along my life, I couldn't be honest with myself in the moment. And that's why I think it's so powerful. My mentor always says, like, you got to become the person that can do the thing. And not until you become the person that you can do the thing. Like, you cannot do it. Like you're constantly teeter, whatever that thing is, that seesawing, you're like, or double dutching, you're jumping in and out, and you are in it a little bit. And when things get a little uncertain, you jump right back out, or like, it's getting hot in there, you jump. Like there's a really interesting gap that once you realize what it is, then you got to fully commit to the thing. And I think that's where people say, like, the lesson will continue to show up until it teaches you the thing. Or I use this Bruce Lee quote all the time when I speak about, not until the student is ready does the teacher appear. Because the teacher is always there. The teacher is literally always there, but not until you are willing to become the student. Then the teacher doesn't really appear. And then it sucks because sometimes when you realize, like, man, that thing was standing in front of me this entire time. Like, look at all the time I wasted because I just couldn't see it for what it was, because you were not ready to be a student of it. You weren't ready to commit to the full process. You just want the result of the process, but you didn't want to go through the process. And going through the process is what makes you fully understand and respect and honor the process, like the end result. Right? It's like, I mean, I think the easiest example of this is fitness, right? Like, the gym is always there. The gym is not going anywhere, right? Your clothes are in your closet. They're there. The sneakers are there. And you don't even need any of those external or expensive things. Like, what is it? Like, body resistance is like the best form of like fitness. Is like, nobody that does fitness come for me. I'm probably chopping it all up, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And so the thing is always there. It's always there. The healthy food is always on the menu along with the junk food. But not until you say, I am ready to make a radical shift in my life, in my health. Then once you say that and you commit to that, then all of a sudden, all you see are all the amazing options that you have. And then you realize like juicing in the morning is actually not a bad thing. The juice tastes really good. And like, you know, the salad instead of the fried chicken is really good. Like, yeah, I hope y'all understand what I'm saying around this, right? And so if you understand that from a health standpoint, then it literally applies to all other aspects of your life. But not until you commit to the thing and the entire thing. Not until you commit to the entire process can it be yours. It's really interesting because I just don't think that people talk enough about the gap of once you get the clarity, then you got to commit to everything else. Let me know if y'all resonate with that, right? Like, I feel like there's a gap that is there that you also have to jump over and overcome. You have to, right? I remember years ago, I don't remember who I was talking to, and we were having a conversation about, like, even just kind of getting clarity around some of the things that I do. And I mean, y'all won't believe this now, but I couldn't own being like a motivational speaker or like a transformation speaker. I was just like, yeah, I do it, and like I enjoy it. And when people say you get lost in the sauce of like, it's been hours and it only feels like, man, like all of those things were feelings that were percolating and like circulating and percolating, right? And I remember just having a conversation with this person, like, what is it that you really want to do, Felecia? And I'm like, man, I really like speaking. And she was just like, okay, if you're being really, I think I said something else. And she's like, no, if you're being really, really honest with yourself, what is it? And I'm like, I feel like communication is a superpower of mine. And she's like, okay, well then that's it. And like, that was the conversation. And I was just like, wait, what? And even saying it was the most honest words that came out of my mouth. And I could not own it in the moment because I think a lot of people feel like this. It didn't sound sexy enough externally, if that makes sense, right? And because we oftentimes answer those introspective questions initially with what sounds good to other people, what sounds impressive to other people, what is going to get the lights, the accolades, the claps, like all of those things. And because we initially answer it, so it's like correct or politically correct or acceptable or like high profile, we don't often get to the truest version of ourselves and the truest thing that excites us. And or the other thing, because I see this all the time when I take people through like the Genius Jam like framework, is you immediately answer it in the thing that you feel will make you money. And the money will come. Like, it always comes. And that's, I know when you don't have it, it's a really hard thing to accept and acknowledge. Like, when is it coming? When is it exactly? But I think oftentimes those are the two things, right? Like, we answer the question that is meant to be introspective enough that if we are honest with it, it sets us on this really unique path to getting to not only our authentic self, but the thing that really sets our soul on fire and the thing that is truly in our genius. But if we're never honest with the output to begin with, we then set out on a very dishonest path that is misaligned with who we really want to be and how we want to spend our time, how we want to make our money, how we want to have our impact. And so like you're literally inputting like bad data that is not connected to who you want. And then you end up building things and attracting things that do not excite you, don't motivate you. You can't stay committed to it because it's a lie. And so you get back to the thing, and sometimes we have to ask yourself multiple times, if I'm being really honest with myself, this is what I want to do. If I'm being really honest with myself, this is what my genius is. If I'm being really, truly honest with myself, and no one else is going to look at this, there's no one that's going to, what just happened? The lamp went off. No one else is going to edit this. No one else is going to judge this. No one else is going to critique this. This is my honesty. And then from there, when you can accept it every single day, you wake up and you say, this is what this type of person looks like. This is what this person does with their day based off of the answer that you give. And then you get to a point where, and this is how this person's life is going to be shaped. This is what they're going to drink. This is what they're going to eat. These are conversations. These are kind of meetings. These are kind of like you can get super, 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 super granular on all of those things until you literally have designed your life, what it looks like when you are most honest with what you want to do and who you want to be. And then like all that friction and like tension in your body gets released because you can finally breathe. You can literally finally breathe because you're being honest and you're living for yourself and nobody else. And for some people, you will not be able to move forward until you name the person whose criticism and judgment stands in the way every single time you are trying to be honest with yourself. What do they think? What are they going to do? What are they going to say? Sometimes you got to name the they. Because if you find yourself thinking that or saying that, it's always a person. That if you are also being really honest with yourself, you can name that person. And then you realize that like, okay, this person deserves no agency in my life anymore. And now that I've named the person, I can take their power away from me. Take away the real estate that they hold in your mind and your heart as to why you can't live your authentic life. And like sometimes that's the process that you got to go through first of like naming that person. It's always a person. And the crazy part is it's always a person that don't really help you with anything. Don't babysit. Like they don't pay your bills. They don't do anything. But like either they are constantly just saying really negative things to you, or at one moment in your life they said something to you that made you question everything about what you do. And now they almost kind of sit on your shoulder. Yeah, I remember those cartoons when he used to, like, the good person, the bad person would sit on your shoulder. They literally sit on your shoulder. And you can't really see them, but like those moments when you need to show up and show out and be really audacious, like they just kind of lay and sit like right here. And it's just like they whisper into your ear and say, you can't really do that. Like, what you thinking? Like, you're from that little city. You are from this neighborhood. They're even the ones that use the word little, right? Like, you came from this, you came from that, or you didn't come from this and you didn't come from that. Like, how dare you think that you can do that? They just sit like right here, but like close enough to that they can whisper in your ear doubt, because they said one thing, they looked at you one kind of way, and they end up owning so much real estate in our minds that even when the opportunities and the things that we say that we want is literally standing right in front of us, that little like voice becomes so loud that you can't hear anything else. You just assume that little whisper of doubt, you've now assumed all of it. And it has become so loud that it clouds your heart, your mind, and your judgment, and you can't do anything else. Someone said, how do you get past analysis paralysis? I'm telling you right now. Because it happens. It happens for a few different reasons, right? And so it's that person that makes you question, because at some point they question you. And oftentimes they couldn't even do it their damn selves. And so they're literally projecting their limited beliefs, their failed whatever on you, because if they can't do it well, then how do you think you're going to do it? Let me show you. That's what you say. And so sometimes it's that. A lot of times it's that. I have been through that. Other times it's you are wanting to do something, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking that it will not work out. And so procrastination and analysis paralysis has a lot to do with you are set out to do something and you think that it's going to fail. It's not going to work out. It's not going to sell. No one's going to show up. It's gonna like fall down, like whatever it is. You cannot hold those two opposite beliefs at the same time. One is gonna win, and we are trained for the negative. You want to know how we're trained and wired for the negative first, to respond to that first? Turn on the news in the morning. Turn on the news in the afternoon. Turn on the news at night. It is nothing but negative stories. Like, we are wired to respond to negative things first. Wired to respond to negative things first. And so the negative thought is always going to win. And as human beings, right, fight or flight and things like that are natural human responses. And so if we think something is going to cause us pain or disappointment or harm or to lose money, you know what? We are going to prolong the process of getting that thing done as long as we possibly can. But you bet some of you never thought about it that way. And so if you set out to write a book and you don't, and in the back of your mind, you think that the book is not going to sell, you don't have writer's block. You were prolonging the pain of the realization that the day that you open it up on Amazon, that nobody's going to buy the book. And so the only way to move forward is to not have those thoughts. People always say, like, what's the worst that can happen? No, like, what's the best possible thing that can happen? Like, why even go, like, why do it if those are the thoughts that you're going to have? And so analysis paralysis and procrastination comes from that. You are expecting a negative or less than favorable outcome, and your body and your mind are listening to you. So you can't connect your thoughts the way that it was flowing before that became a goal of yours, because your body is literally trying to protect you from this fear that you have. But if it wasn't a fear and it was something like, I know that like as soon as I click this like button, this thing is going to fly off the shelf. You know what? You're going to get that thing done as fast as possible. It's a thought process. And it's our body literally responding to what we keep telling it. So if you keep telling it, this is not going to work, it's not going to work, it's not going to work, it's not going to work, guess what? Our bodies don't go into work because it's not working. Like, we are very sophisticated bodies and minds that are working overtime for us to give us whatever it is that we are asking it, but it gives us what we feed it. So if you say the thing is not going to work, our bodies are not going to work. But if you say, this is going to be amazing, this is going to work, it is going to work. It is going to do all the things that it does in the background to get you to that outcome, because you said that is the outcome that you want. But the dangerous thing is a lot of us will say, I want this thing, but you secretly in the back, what did I think? It was like a Nelson Mandela quote. Like, you cannot have like these two polar opposite beliefs at the same time. You cannot. Either you believe the thing is going to work and then you start working towards it. And then like what Oprah says, right? Then the universe literally conspires to give you everything that you want in support of that thing, because not only do you believe it, then you start to embody it. You believe it and then you start to embody it. But if you say it's not going to work, you then start to embody that too. Like, the mind is a really, really, really powerful thing. And that's why I talk about it so much. Like, I can come on IG and do lives around startups and fundraising and all that stuff. And I do it sometimes, but those things come as a result of like getting your mind together. And it's the biggest lesson that I learned. And when that clicked, everything clicked. Like, when that clicked for me, everything clicked. And so I share with you the thing that for me was the most transformational thing, was literally to be much more optimistic and positive about the things that I want out of life and the things that I want for other people. Because once you I think it's Jack Canfield, he says, if you think that you can, then you're right. And if you think that you can't, you are also right. It's such a simple statement. And I think I'm chopping it up, but y'all get the point. If you think that you can do it, then you're right. But if you think that you can't do it, you are also right.